of these spherical phenomena. I have examples of these things 300 miles away, close to the ship. So I feel there's enough there to I didn't want to freak out the
You felt that there might have been a bit much.
Well, I'd already seen Professor Weinberg's reaction, and you really have to be right with them to hold their hand. And I just felt that he might stop the emails. We were absolutely knocked out that this man started talking to us. It was the first time that I've ever heard of a senior Major League JPL NASA player literally discussing what is on the tapes. There's an example of the tether, which is a 12-mile long electrical, $100 million satellite controlling
An electrical experiment.
Yes, I'm not a scientist, I apologize for that, but, you know, I'll get you these details. But and this tether, they are busy showing us from the moment it broke to the moment it's 300 miles away. And at every point...
It broke?
Yes, mysteriously it broke just in the right place. If it broke a little bit too close to the shuttle, it would have taken the shuttle out. If it had broken a little further on, it would have maybe destroyed the wing or something, you know? Because you hear the astronauts say, well, it couldn't have happened in a better place, you know? And then, just to continue on the distance, as these things started swarming it, and as this thing drifted away, they're continually showing us, or NASA, I guess, you know, through the downlink, this $100 million satellite. And the phenomena followed the satellite.
This is the second, the spherical phenomena.
The spherical phenomena. And
NASA commenting on these things as this is happening?
Oh, at one point they asked, and the astronaut says, well, it's a little bit of debris or something, like you'd think he'd know, that follows us around, sort of. That's, you know, it wasn't like, oh, this is this. And then they dropped it.
There's a few of these things in the footage, or are there a lot of them?
There's more than a lot. If you've ever seen a hornet's nest after you've thrown a rock at it, you know, that's what it's like. And how do you count the hornets? So they're all going in different directions. And I use tricks like fast forward, because when you go in fast forward, if they're all stars, they all go in the same direction. You know, these things are all moving. But what was very interesting is they're saying, how far is the tether? Well, the tether is now 100 miles. And they zoom with their incredible zoom in on it. And you see some of these spheres in front of the tether, and some of absolutely clearly, no problem at all, they're behind the tether. And if the tether's 12 miles, and these are half the size of the tether going behind it at 100 miles away, they're not specks of ice.
Well, even for me, I find it hard to believe that they could be crystals then if
but again, I'm merely saying that, you know, I'd like that I'm just saying what they can't be. And I've never heard of a 6-mile ice crystal that's spotted crystal clear 100 miles away, you know, etc. So there's hundreds of those examples. Then they've called them on the different videos. One time they said they were shooting stars and meteors. Then the same phenomenon appears on the next flight, and it's ice crystals. And then the next phenomenon appears on the next flight, and it's debris. You see what I mean? They've already established it on STS-70-something that it's...
I seem to remember something about fireflies at one stage from a long time ago.
I believe this spherical phenomena first appeared to John Glenn as early as 1962. And he did, and it continued. We have documentation from various publications that shows that they know clearly. They didn't have an answer for 3 to 4 space flights. They had an answer to what, you know, the blue haze around the Earth is. You know, it's they had an answer to just about everything else. But there's this very interesting thing about 3 or 4 flights in, where it says John Glenn's fireflies spotted over Perth. They're still calling them John Glenn's fireflies. And we have an astronaut making the comment on the 25th anniversary of the moon flight. He says, it's hard to believe, but he says it's a fact that we thought that John's fireflies, again, Glenn's fireflies, were living critters. Now, at no time have I've read everything, and at no time have I ever heard that before, that NASA concluded originally that the fireflies were alive. So they were still calling them John Glenn's fireflies 4 flights in. There's another interesting thing. If you look at John Glenn's original photos, which I have, which he bought a camera at a Cocoa Beach drugstore, even though the shuttle or the whatever capsule that I've forgotten, even though they had a camera on that, he took his own. And when he saw the fireflies, and it's all documented, and it's even in the movie The Right Stuff, he holds the camera up while the fireflies are above his head, and he says, "I better film or you guys are going to think I'm nuts." And when you see those pictures, and you see the pictures of the shuttle today and the Mir, you see the same phenomena.
Sounds
Little,
like it might be
spherical.
An interesting exercise to show John Glenn the footage that you've now got and let him comment on that.
I challenge NASA, JPL, Story Musgrave, astronauts, and especially James Hoberg to debate me. Because it's one of those situations where if they haven't done the homework I've done, and they don't have the video I have, and they haven't done the research, and that they don't have a chance. I wouldn't be able to downlink what I got. I wouldn't be able to find the things I found and do it consistently like I have been able to do if NASA really wanted to hide it.
Although you did mention to me, Martin, that they shifted a satellite at one stage, or...
Yes, they've done some shifty things, and there are military people as well as the non-military people. For instance, there's a flight I have where it's basically the entire flight was the control room except for the spacewalk. The spacewalk was to test the new backpacks, and it's a famous walk because the fellow flipped around, the astronaut flipped around and couldn't stop. So that's what made the news. But if you look at the whole spacewalk, and everybody in the media had the chance, there's a point where he says, "There's not, Mark, will you look out there? There's an object right in front of you." And the military fellow says, "I don't know what you're talking about." Now just think to yourself, if I said there's a bee about to sting you, wouldn't you go, "I wonder where that is," or something other than, "I don't know what you're talking about"? First of all, what do you mean you don't know what I'm talking about? If I'm in outer space and I'm flying around and my partner says there's an object in front of you, I wouldn't say, "I don't know what you're talking about," and then his next line is, "Never mind." And then the third astronaut says, "Am I missing something?" And he says, "Don't worry, the lens filter came off," now confirming the size and how close it must have been. Going, and it's flying off at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Now, when they first mentioned the object, the shuttle camera, you couldn't see it. So I wasn't looking for it. They drew my attention to it. I looked, and there the object emerged. And the third thing he's saying to the third astronaut is, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." You know, it's the camera filter. And then he even confirms, off 10, 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock, you know. And then there's a pause. And the control room below tells him to stay vector. Shut up. Stay on course. Continue with what you were supposed to do. And then they continue as if nothing happened. As if nothing had happened. Yet it's right on tape. Audio, video, and you see the object they're referring to. So, but my point was they didn't hide that from me. They're challenging us to find it. And my only question is, how come there aren't more of us out there finding it? This is a big world, and most humans love mysteries, and the video is available, and many people have home dishes. And even though NASA moved the satellite almost onto the horizon after they found out what we were doing, we still were able to get the satellite. I just don't see, I've had no agents at my house. I've communicated with the Canadian Space